Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff, Alison McConnell and Tam McManus here with me. It's all sponsored by Indigo Communications and we're delighted that you can join us. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button as so many of you are doing, and also if you get a chance, download the PLZ Soccer app as well. You can watch the programme live on your phone or indeed your tablet, or as many people do on YouTube. They put it up on their smart television on the big screen. So thank you to you all. We've got lots to get through. World Cup, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about various things that happened over the weekend in the Championship. We'll look to Celtic in Australia. But first, we're going to talk about Rangers because Giovanni van Bronckhorst has been sacked, Ruffy.
Yeah, he certainly has, and we debated it earlier on. You know, we thought when we went back to Holland, you know, for a break, that something was happening behind the scenes, but obviously we're not privy to what's been happening behind the scenes. But I think it's given them a month. It's given them a month to identify who's out there, who they could attract. And now we'll have to sit tight and wait and see all the names that get thrown up there. Yeah, absolutely. We've got lots to talk about with that. You can give us your thoughts on Giovanni van Bronckhorst. If you've been watching the World Cup, what about the opening scene? Should it have been shown by the BBC? What about the game itself? Ecuador with 2 goals, and of course over and above that, something that was a big problem was the VAR. It was a close call on one of the goals that was disallowed, and England today in action have defeated Iran by 6 goals to 2. So there's so much to talk about. You can give us your views on that, and we always like to throw in a wee quiz question as well. Here's the quiz question for today, and it's all to do with Iran. How many times have Iran appeared at the World Cup? Give us your thoughts on how many times.
For Ruffy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course.
At least once.
Yeah, there's the quiz question. And as well as giving you the chance to win some fantastic retro football shots, which we'll show you a little later on, if you want to get involved, we've teamed up with Fandex, and this is a fabulous competition, a chance to win cash prizes at the end of each stage of the World Cup. All you have to do is have a quick look at the video, follow the link in our page, and get on to worldcupfandex.com, and you can just basically get involved in stocks and shares. That's how we do it at the World Cup. Here's our reporter Kerry to tell you all about it.
Come and join PLZ Soccer on Fandex for our FIFA World Cup 2022 stock exchange game. It's absolutely free to play and you have the chance to win cash prizes. You can buy in shares in your favourite team and watch their stock price increase or decrease based on their real-life World Cup performances against the expected points tally set by Fandex. You can buy and sell as many teams as you like, as often as you like, with winners being announced after every round. The PLZ Soccer family are waiting for you on Fandex. Head to plzsoccer.com and click on Fandex World Cup 2022.
Yeah, one to look forward to. If you go to worldcupfandex.com, you can get straight to it and get in on the action. We certainly will be looking at some of the stocks and shares on that game. It's absolutely free to play. Good luck with that. So, Giovanni van Bronckhorst sacked by Rangers after just over a year in charge. Here's the statement that came out from the board. I want to thank Gio for the hard work he's put in over the last 12 months, and especially the achievements of taking the club to the Europa League final and winning the Scottish Cup last season. Unfortunately, recent results have not met either our or Gio's expectations, and we have taken this difficult decision today. Everyone at Rangers wishes Gio every success in the future, and that's from the Rangers chairman, Douglas Park. Has he been harshly dealt with in this case, Alison?
I think the reality is when you have a 9-point gap between Rangers and Celtic, and for either side, it's never palatable to supporters, to staff, to boardrooms. I think performances have been limp. I think it's been no real surprise. I think you could potentially, I think you'd be hard pressed to make an argument for any team who finds themselves adrift by that point. But I think if you can see a cohesion in the park, or you can see that it's been, the team are progressing in the right way, you could maybe mount a defence. I just don't think there's been anything there. I think you could argue that getting to a Europa League final bought him some credit in the bank, but I think the reality in Glasgow is you just cannot ever afford to be that distance off your rivals.
I thought the timing was poor, Tam.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do it, I think you'd have done it immediately after the St Mirren game, where basically the league's finished 9 points behind. You know, I think 17 or 18 goals behind. You know, it's a long way back for Rangers in the league. And it's not just the points, it's the manner of Rangers' performances. Livingston, even Dundee in the Cup, they were really poor. They scraped a 1-0 win. Losing to St Johnstone, drawing to St Mirren, it's not good enough for Rangers, and I think that was coming. I didn't see Gio turning it around, so I think it was just whether they were going to bite the bullet and sack him now and pay the money out, or they were going to limp it out to the end of the season. And I don't think the fans would have accepted that, so I think they've made the right decision. I think the supporters will be happy, and they'll be looking for a bigger name to come in.
Yeah, we sent our reporter Adam Binney out to Ibrox to catch up with former Rangers player Ian Ferguson to get his take on the decision.
Hello, I'm Adam Binney and I'm outside of Ibrox Stadium following the news that the Rangers board this morning have sacked manager Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by former Rangers player Ian Ferguson. First of all, Ian, can I just get your reaction to this morning's news?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose it's been in the offing, really. Results haven't been the best the last couple of months. I think a lot to contend with, a lot of injuries to the squad players, and again, the manager has paid the price with his job. I think the last couple of games in the league, St Johnstone and St Mirren, to lose more points and go further behind Celtic, I think everybody's came to the conclusion that it was time for a change. I respect the board's decision to do that. Giovanni will always be a legend at Rangers. He was a fantastic player for the club. He got them to Champions League group stages for first time in a number of years. Also won a Scottish Cup at the end of the season. So good and bad things, but he's paid the ultimate price with his job today because of the results over the last couple of months.
It wasn't too long ago that we were talking about Van Bronckhorst getting Rangers to a European final. It was a massive achievement. Do you think this decision is perhaps a little bit harsh, or do you think the board have made the right call?
Well, I think you have to respect the board's decision. They've made the decision it's time for a change. Possibly the manager may have thought that as well, who knows. I think it has been a mixture of good and bad, because the performances that they had last season to get to Seville, and that's a memory that no one will, that's connected to Rangers, will forget. It was a fantastic opportunity to get to a Europa League final, only lost it on a penalty kick, won the Scottish Cup at the end of the season. So again, mixture of good and bad. I think there's a lot to contend with injuries and stuff to major players this season. And again, I respect the board's decision and the manager's decision to move on. Just have to look for a new manager.
It's been over a week since that result in Paisley. Do you think the timing of this is perhaps a little bit surprising?
Well, I think everybody would look at it and say, well, it's not a knee-jerk reaction because they've had a week to mull things over, and I think they've came to the conclusion it's time for change. So we have to respect that. And some people would criticise if you make a knee-jerk reaction and you sack someone too quickly. But again, they've had that week to mull things over and take the decision that it's time for the manager to move on. So you have to respect that.
There's plenty of names being thrown around, but Ian, who would you like to see take up the hot seat at Ibrox?
I think it's very difficult. It's a massive job to undertake. Rangers are a massive worldwide club. There's a lot of pressure, as we can see, with the manager losing his job today. You have to be up for the challenge. You have to know what the club's all about, the history of the club. There's a few names being mentioned in the press. Michael Beale, obviously, being a very successful coach here with Steven Gerrard. His name's been put in the frame. If he wanted it, then again, I wouldn't mind seeing him taking charge of the club. But I wouldn't hazard a guess. There'll be a lot of people would be interested in this position to be manager of Glasgow Rangers. So it'll be interesting to see whose name unfolds in the next few days.
Thanks very much for your time, Ian.
No worries.
Yeah, well, there you are. I mean, there's lots of Rangers pundits up and down the country. We'll be looking at specific names, Ruffy. Here are the odds on the guys who are the early runners and riders. Sean Dyche at 4-1, Michael Beale 7-1, Ralph Hasenhüttl at 9-1, Steven Gerrard at 9-1, although early indications are that he wouldn't be interested in coming back. Kevin Muscat 12-1, Domenico Tedesco at 14-1. Listen, somebody could come out of left field, Ruffy, but there's a couple in there that I'm not amazed, because listen, if anything, Rangers and Celtic can surprise you at the best of times with choices for manager. I can't see Sean Dyche. I don't know why. I think, but he'd be high up on a lot of Rangers fans' list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to go with Ian. I think Michael Beale, he's been there. They know him. They know him really well. They know what he did when Stevie Gerrard was there. They know what he's like behind the scenes. Everybody raves about him. I've been a super coach. The players all talk him up. I know he's down in England, and you know, a lot of people were saying, well, maybe that's a progression for him down there. But he knows how big Rangers is. He knows what a job it is, and he knows the support that they've got. And it's really up to him. It's his shout, you know, because I think he'll definitely be approached.
Well, there's two elements to this which I think are going to be really interesting. And one, John here on our feed mentions it. He says neither Gerrard nor Beale will come back to manage at Ibrox because they know the financial constraints with the current board. So that's one element of it. And the second element for me, with Michael Beale, who I think will be a fan's favourite because of the aforementioned points from Ruffy, is I don't think he's the type of person you would give this job to. I don't think he's strong enough. This is a massive job. And I think Rangers are looking for someone with, you know, a real character, a real imprint on what the style of football will be. He'll be able to handle all the things that come with being a Rangers manager. It's a big, big job.
I think it would be a gamble. I think he's obviously just been at QPR. He's done well at QPR, but I agree with Ruffy. I think that the Rangers board know him. They know what he's like. They've seen him operate in the training ground. Everyone says, and I don't know if this is true, that he took all the training. He was the kind of brains behind the outfit at Rangers and brains behind Gerrard. So he's went and he's done well at QPR. I think he would be the one that Rangers would want and the Rangers board would want. I don't see Dyche or Hasenhüttl taking it at this point. I don't see them coming up with Rangers at this point. Maybe at the end of the season if they're still not got a job in England. But I think Michael Beale would be the one that the Rangers supporters would want to see. It was interesting he came up to the game 3 or 4 weeks ago. He came to the game and Giovanni was under pressure. I didn't like that. I thought that was... I think there's a managerial code when a manager's under pressure that other managers don't come. Yeah. I think he was drinking at a Rangers bar with the Rangers supporters before it. So yeah. Whether that was him indicating that he would want to come back and he knew that Gio's time was running out, I don't know, but I think he would take it, and I think the Rangers board would go for him. So I think he would be the clear favourite for me.
Yeah. Did Van Bronckhorst not hit that package that you just said there now about what the next manager would be? You know, somebody who knows about the club, somebody who's been there, somebody. I thought he ticked all the boxes that you said there. So I think they might go down another road. Yeah, what do you think, Michael Beale, or do you think someone else? I think Beale, who's a young guy, you know, with ambition out there. They've done it with Gerrard, they've done it with Van Bronckhorst. They might just say to themselves, let's go down another route. But you know, the thing that's sticking in the back of my head, I don't think he's big enough in stature. I think it's too early to hand the reins over to someone who, you know, is unproven at this level. This is not somebody, you know, sometimes football's the only situation where you see a huge business handed over sometimes to a novice. But I think Rangers have been down that road before and thought, nah, we're not, I can't see it.
I think in normal circumstances you would have an argument. I think what makes it different is the fact that he has been credited with a huge part in stopping Celtic winning 10 in a row, and I think there's an automatic endearment there having done that, and also the perception was that he was a very astute coach. So I think it's not quite as naked as the presentation that you've offered. What I would say is it's not gone particularly well for him in recent months down south.
Yeah.
I think he has a significant strength of support among the Rangers fans, which is very important. I think if you're going to introduce a manager, you can't be fighting against the tide. You need to bring somebody that people are behind immediately. I think he has that. Finances would be the one for me. I think whoever takes that job is going to want an assurance that they can go into the January window and bring in at least a couple of players to strengthen, and probably more importantly, get rid of a couple of players that are there just now that are maybe taking in pretty substantial fees and wages to utilise that elsewhere. So he would know the lay of the land in terms of that. I also think he might fancy being his own man, having seen what Steven Gerrard done and the acclaim he took. I think he would fancy it. I think a lot of the candidates that you held up there on the board, I think a lot just financially it's completely unrealistic.
Yeah, I mean there's one here which Greg, and I'm not going to diss Greg at all, Greg McCrindle says Peter, next Rangers manager will be Kjetil Knutsen. I think he's at Bodo Glimt at the moment. Listen, even if he's out with Rangers' financial situation, and you don't know what that budget's going to be at the moment, and who's going to dip their hand in their pocket to make sure they get someone of a certain stature. But, even with what Greg's just said there and other Rangers fans that I've been speaking to, I think it has to be someone that excites, and is effectively up against a man who has got a bit of experience in Ange Postecoglou. He's 9 points clear, so it needs to be someone who is strong enough to say, okay, I might not get my whole team in there, but I've got to make sure this team immediately shows improvement and maybe run Celtic closer.
I think that's the first thing you would be looking for. I think most fans would accept the league's done. I think, barring an unmitigated collapse, I think you just don't see any evidence of that coming. But what you do want to see is a vast improvement that then sets it up for next season. You'd expect a decent run now in the Scottish Cup, whoever's coming in, and you would expect them to cut that deficit and to show signs of a team that has a clear identity. I think if someone had said to you a month ago, what's the culture around that Rangers side on the pitch? What's the ethos behind the way they play? What's the philosophy of how they play? I think you would have struggled to say what it was. I think at Celtic you have a very clear indication of how that team plays. I think you could argue about its merits and deficiencies at times, as we have done here, going into European football and the like, but it's a very clear identity that the players have an affinity with, that they know how they're playing. I think you would have struggled to have said that at Rangers, and I think that's one of the things. You want to see an identity about the team, and you want to see them progressing, you want to see an improvement, a cohesion, a spirit. I think at times they've looked as though they've lacked any kind of backbone, lacked a bit of fight, lacked a bit of camaraderie at times. I think you want to see all of that. I think sometimes that comes when players are there too long.
Well, I think that's one of the other reasons why Beale's got a start on everybody else, because if he was appointed, he'll be walking into that dressing room knowing the ones that have to be emptied, because he's seen them.
Yeah.
If you bring somebody else in who doesn't know them, it might take him another month to find out the ones that have to get rid of. So I think
it's important as well that Michael Beale never went to Villa with Gerrard. I don't think he's tainted by that disappointment from Villa, and I think his stocks stayed up there. I think if he'd have went to Villa, and Villa had, bombed what they did under Steven Gerrard and they all get emptied, I don't think he'd been running for the job. But he's went to QPR, he's done well, and he's not been tainted. And the Rangers fans I speak to all say, Beale, he was the brains, he took all the training and stuff. So
yeah,
I think that's important enough for a lot of Rangers fans that he's not been tainted with that disappointment of Villa.
Well, there's a split in the camp here, because you've got Beale.
Yeah, I've got Beale because of that and because of the financial implications as well. I don't think he'll be as costly as the others.
Yeah,
I think Beale ticks a lot of boxes for me, so I think the Rangers will go for him.
Well, I'm open. I must maybe I've got delusions of grandeur of what I think the manager should be at Rangers, but I just think it needs to be someone.
Do you think the other three tick that box that you're talking about? The ones that will go up there?
I think Sean Dyche is out of their wage bracket. That's the first thing. And I always think that sometimes you've got to listen to what someone says in an interview rather than jump in and go, Sean Dyche is easily within Rangers' bracket here. Sean Dyche hasn't talked about the Rangers job. He's just basically said, I've got unfinished business in the Premier League, so you take him at his word. And I do think financially he's out of their bracket. But in saying that, I do think they need to unearth someone who has got a proven track record somewhere else and is strong enough in stature to go in and say, right, if I'm coming in here, this is my style, this is the way we'll play, this is the calibre of player I want to bring in here, and I know the troublemakers. I don't care that I've not been here before. I'll empty them and I can take on Ange Postecoglou because I've done it here, there and there. I don't see that in a Michael Beale in a job which is right now, you're talking about a club that's right behind the eight ball to say to themselves, we've got to get them to a point where Rangers have got to battle back against Celtic. We've got to get to April with a good narrative to say, by the way, give us your season ticket money.
I think that's crucial. I would agree with you. I think from an outsider's point of view, I would understand exactly where you're coming from, and I think you want someone to come in who has a bit of authority, someone to come in with a senior figure within the game who commands a certain authority within the dressing room. and whose track record suggests that he can go toe-to-toe, because it's never easy when you've got one half winning, and Celtic are playing a particular way just now that the garden is rosy. I think it can be very difficult to come in and try and upset that balance and try and find a way through it, but it can happen very, very quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
It can happen. So I understand where you're coming from. The reason I think Michael Beale is attractive is just for all the reasons that we've mentioned, and I think the first thing an experienced manager is going to ask is, what's my budget to come in and overhaul this team? What's the money that I've got to play with? You've got this window coming up, there'll be a summer window. These are my first 2 windows that I want to make a significant impression on my team, and what have I got to change it? That, I think, might affect the quality of the candidate that you bring in.
I can see a lot of people on the feed saying about Sean Dyche and saying he's overrated and what has he done and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the same people were probably saying, what's Eddie Howe done? What's he won in England?
Well, Sean Dyche has
Look
kept
what he's doing now at Newcastle.
But Sean Dyche has kept Burnley
Similar budgets.
in the top flight for so many years.
Yep.
And over and above that, some people think, his football's a bit brutal at times, but he had a remit to try and keep this team, an unfancied Burnley, in a league which is cutthroat and brutal.
No, he kept him in the league for a number of years, and as I said, it's not all about winning stuff. He went down there and he done a tremendous job at Burnley. Never spent a lot of money, and it was the same with Eddie Howe at Bournemouth. And Eddie Howe obviously knocked back the Celtic job and went to Newcastle now, and he's doing really well. So I don't understand that the Dyche is overhyped. I don't get that. I think he's a very, very good manager.
Yeah.
I think the one thing you would say is not to be in a rush to make an appointment. I think I'm contradicting myself a bit there, because I think maybe the timing of the news this morning suggested that maybe there are discussions with someone and someone is lined up.
Well, I thought you actually touched on it nicely in the preview when we were talking about it earlier, and you said maybe they were waiting to make sure they've got all their ducks in a row.
I do wonder about that, but at the same time, what I would say is I don't think you should rush into something. I think the league's gone. The league is absolutely, it would be highly unlikely for Rangers to claw that back. They don't play now to December the 15th when they host Hibs at Ibrox. So you've got the guts of a month to really think about it. Who knew Ange Postecoglou? When Ange Postecoglou was announced, people were Googling who he was. You might have heard him from the World Cup, or the name might have prompted a memory. Why not go left field? Why not go and do your homework and see who else is out there? What can they do? What can they bring in? What qualities have they got? Rather than maybe going for a fairly tired run again on the managerial go-round, why not go and see?
Kevin Muscat's been mentioned by a lot of Rangers supporters. I think did he take over from Ange?
When he went in Japan, I'm not sure if he was...
the same club. I'm not sure if it's the same club, but I think he won the league last season, or this season.
Yeah.
And he's done particularly well over there, played for Rangers.
It'd be interesting to see if the Rangers supporters want somebody who's Rangers-minded, if you know what I mean.
No,
or whether they want to stay away from that, because sometimes you go down that road and it doesn't work.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who maybe comes out of left field, but as you mentioned here, I think the more pressing matter for anyone that's selected as the Rangers manager, whoever they unveil, fine, Rangers fans will make their judgment on who it is. I think the more pressing matter in the background is how much money has he got to actually take on a Celtic side that with Ange Postecoglou will strengthen in January again, and we'll want to make sure that the title is indeed beyond Rangers to go straight into the Champions League. So there's all of that. Can you give the manager the money? Can he get rid of some of the deadwood, and what price is he going to get rid of them on? Because it's certainly not the 20s and 30 millions we were talking about for a Kent and a Morelos as it stands. Hard to believe though, as we look back on the Giovanni Van Bronckhorst era, it was only a week ago people were looking and reflecting on his year in charge, and maybe the interviews just come out a wee bit too soon, premature. Maybe somebody should have tipped them the wink on a year in charge. We have a look back at the highs, the lows and the acts for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst.
Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has been sacked as Rangers manager after spending just over a year in the Ibrox hot seat. The Dutchman arrived in Govan in November 2021 with a stellar reputation from his time as a player, having won 2 Scottish Premiership titles, 2 Scottish Cups and 2 Scottish League Cups. In his first match in charge, he won 2-0 at home to Sparta Prague in the Europa League group stage before a 3-1 league win at Livingston to get his tenure off to a perfect start. A run of 7 consecutive league wins came to an end with a 1-1 draw away to Aberdeen in January, before a 3-0 loss at Celtic saw his side concede top of the Scottish Premiership table to their rivals, a lead which they could not recover. Despite a disappointing domestic campaign, Rangers thrived on the European stage. Van Bronckhorst led the side to the Europa League final in Seville, overcoming European heavyweights like Borussia Dortmund, Braga and RB Leipzig en route to the final. It was not to be the fairy tale ending for the Light Blues, however, as they were beaten on penalties by Eintracht Frankfurt. The season did end on a high though, with the side lifting the Scottish Cup to beat Hearts 2-0 in the final. Rangers started the current season promisingly, qualifying for the UEFA Champions League for the first time in over a decade. However, they didn't pick up a single point in the group stage, the low point of which was a 7-1 drubbing at home to Liverpool, leading to Van Bronckhorst claiming his side couldn't compete at that level.
Competitive in Champions League, you have to have is not a team who can operate in Champions League. That's what we saw this campaign. So now we have to switch back to the league and try to win the trophies we are still in.
What followed was a poor run of league results, including a home draw with Livingston and a shock loss away to St Johnstone.
I always put myself behind the queue, and that's in my character. So, but of course I'm happy also for myself that we won today, but only as last person.
A narrow win against Hearts signalled a brief moment of hope in what were to be the final days for the Gers boss. However, days later, a 1-1 draw away to St Mirren saw his side go into the World Cup break 9 points behind rival Celtic. This was the final straw for the board, who took the decision to bring the curtain down on his reign. All eyes now turn to Rangers Chiefs and who they will recruit to replace Van Bronckhorst to attempt to reel in Celtic at the top of the Scottish Premiership.
Yeah, and I'm sure that man, whoever he is, when he's unveiled, will obviously mention to the Rangers fans that it's not over, that he's going to continue to fight and they can reel in Celtic. But that means that he has to, first of all, get something out of a team that I thought were woeful against St Mirren, has to get something out of them, a little kick, a little spark, and then keep it going as quickly and as long as possible to January the 3rd and still be in touch. Because I think they need to get that transfer window and know that they can go and recruit other players.
Yeah, I think it's actually a decent time to come in as a Rangers manager. I think the expectations at the minute are pretty low for terms of Rangers. I think no Rangers supporter would think that they're going to win a league this season. So I think if a manager comes in and does well, maybe picks up 2 or 3 wins, beats Celtic, you're back in it. Because the league's, we all kind of agree that we think the league's done for Rangers. So I think it's a good time for a guy to come in at Rangers and take the reins. But as I said, you're never beaten until it's mathematically impossible to win the league. And I think we've just seen that clip there with Gio after the Ajax game, and I think that was the beginning and the end for him. I think when he came out and said that they couldn't compete at that level, he just waved the white flag, and I think his players took that on board and they've done the same. So I think you've got to always be positive. You've got to never say die and never admit defeat when you're Rangers or Celtic manager. And I thought in the European campaign, I thought Gio admitted defeat after one game.
Yeah, Ali, I think sometimes, being economical with the truth is what we expect from managers. And I agree with Tam. As soon as he'd said that, I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. If that's the situation in Europe, then how can St Mirren take a point off you? How can St Johnstone beat you? How can they compete with you in the domestic league?
I think sometimes there are comments that just let the genie out the bottle, and when they're out, it's very, very difficult to go back because they point to a culture within your dressing room that I think just it becomes unsustainable. I think regardless of what you might think privately in some matters about players wanting away perhaps, or about whether or not you can compete, I think publicly there is an image that you portray of where you are as a club and where you are as a team, and I think you can't afford to let that guard down.
Yeah, okay, you can give us your thoughts. Who would you like to see as the Rangers manager? Is it the right decision to sack Gio? Should it have been done after the St Mirren game? Is it now all about putting it behind you? and looking for someone who's got that stature. Have you got someone in mind that you think should be the ideal candidate? Maybe a collection of maybe one or two people. Does it need to be someone who understands what Rangers are all about? You can give us your thoughts on that as well. As ever, we like to talk about football. We like to give you the chance to get involved in competitions. We've got the Fandex competition, but we also have a fantastic one. We've teamed up with Copa and our friends at Grieve Sports. And I have to say, this is a humdinger of a prize.
PLZ Soccer has teamed up with our friends at Grieve Sports and Copa to offer you the fabulous chance to win one of these retro World Cup shirts if you enter our new hat-trick competition. All you have to do is tell us who you think will win the World Cup, be crowned player of the tournament, and who will be top goal scorer. The person who gets all three correct will win a voucher to pick their own shirt from the Copa shop, and even if you don't get all three correct, you can still enter the draw by subscribing to PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. We have 6 vouchers to give away, so all you have to do is enter your answers in the comment section below or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Good luck!
Yeah, well done to Kerry, giving us the insight into that. It's an easy competition then, Ali. It's who's going to win the World Cup, who's going to be the player of the tournament, and who's going to be the top goal scorer. Although I have to say, if you'd listened to we're only one game into it, Ruffy, but England trounced Iran 6-2, and I think, as you mentioned there, they're already looking at who they're playing in the next round.
Yes, Senegal or Holland, they're already debating which of the two they would like, to progress in the tournament, which is not unusual, really, is it? We're not surprised by that. But no, I thought they put in a good performance. I thought defensively they were a wee bit iffy when they did get up the park and had a go at them. But certainly the players on show, particularly the young ones, and in that competition, I think we might be adding the boy Bellingham into that tournament if he continues like that. A wonderful talent.
Yeah, we were having a great argument in the PLZ offices today, because it's a lovely mix, Ruffy, in our team of young team, not so young team, middle-aged. Yeah, I dodged that, Ali. Middle-aged, then the elder statesman in the crew, and so one of them said Bellingham world class, and I went no, come on, have a look at yourself. They've only got one world class player, which is Kane.
Not yet, but he showed everything as a 19-year-old boy. If he continues the way he's going, it won't be very long, if he continues like that. But no, there's still a lot of world-class players to come onto the scene in this World Cup. Yeah,
for the result itself, I mean, England going forward, middle to front against Iran, and Iran are no great shakes. I don't want to take anything away from England. You still have to win that opening game. I was impressed with the way they went about, their movement and the quality of the goals they scored in that game. So I think it'll be a huge confidence boost to get the first one out of the road and lift everybody's spirits.
No, I think that'll give them massive confidence. You get into the first game, and what the English press are like. If you go off to a poor start, the turn-ups on the front page and all that stuff. So, listen, I think everyone expected them to win the game, but to win at 6-2 is a fantastic start. I think middle to front, they've got a lot of pace and movement. Sterling, Saka, Kane in there. Brought Grealish on, who scored. They brought Rashford on, who scored. So, guys that come off the bench contributing as well. The only surprise was Kane never scored. I think he set up a couple of goals, so I think he'll be disappointed that he never scored, and then they scored 6. But it's a great start for them, but there'll be harder tests to come. Yeah, it's a great wee sweepstake we've got going with me, you and Ruffy. Of course, I'm not happy that you've let Tam Cowan into it, because Tam's idea of a bet... Ruffy's phoned me this morning.
Yeah. What did you tell him that he could come into the sweepstake for?
No, he pleaded to get back in. He said he was misinformed of how we were running this competition. So I had to let him back in, because he was gutted he wasn't a part of the team.
Yeah, well, see if he starts coming up with nil-nils and stupid ones, that's your fault. Because I thought yesterday I got us off to a flyer, Tam. I said there would be a penalty, boom, that came up. And then I can't believe...
Did you bung the ref as well?
I'm raging with the ref, by the way, because Ecuador, they're 2 goals up. Ener Valencia looks like, the real deal scored. He scored a good goal, and then all of a sudden we've got the leg that's offside. I understand where it's offside, but
it's annoying when you've bet over 2 goals.
And he could have had 3.
He could have, but Ecuador just cruised it the second half, didn't they? Qatar were terrible.
I think we should let the viewers into the one that Tam has come up with, that we have indulged, that there's going to be a booking in every game
No, to be fair, I come up with that. It's my
Did you?
fault.
Well, we've got a booking, to let everybody know, we have a booking. Somebody gets booked in every game, right through to the final. We'll be doing very well. So if you're watching the telly and there's any bad tackles, we'll all be shouting at the telly.
Yeah,
that's a yellow card.
Can I just say, Ali, it's such a good. I mean, I don't know about you, Tam and I looked at each other and we went, "That's a good shout, by the way." And then Tam says, "Look, this is how we'll distribute the money on it."
I think the you need to get through the last game of the groups, because a lot of the games will be dead rubbers. You'll maybe get a situation, I don't know what World Cup it was, when it was 0-0. The two of them
Belgium,
was it Sunday?
Germany or something.
When a draw does both teams, they just pass the ball. But so we need to get in it. We need to try and get by that. But once we get to the knockout stages, I think we've got a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right, Tam. It's a good shout, Ali. You know, because the reason why it's a good bet is because VAR's involved.
Yes,
and because I think officials will not be tolerating any kind of poor challenges or any mistimed challenges. I think they'll be coming down quite hard on anything like that. So, yeah, you might have a good return on your money.
Yeah, well, we're hoping so anyway. Listen, we love the World Cup, and I really want to enjoy the football, and I want to be talking about the football on the park, but I'm not going to miss what has been, I think, a concerted, real, hammering of FIFA. I think some of it's been justified. I thought the Gianni Infantino's press conference was utterly bizarre, to say the least, Ruffy. I think to suddenly try and get people to focus, it was a bit of a whataboutery press conference, getting people to focus on things elsewhere while failing to really address some of the real concerns that have been highlighted about the country. Well, whatever you think about how they got it, whether there was anything in the background that basically bought that World Cup for them, whatever you think about their human rights, I think there should be more of a concerted effort to say, right, how can we challenge and get these people to change the way they operate? There should be a campaign and dialogue to say, after this World Cup is finished, now that you have it, we can't do anything about it. What are you going to do about compensation for migrant workers? Accurate figures on who lost their lives while building the stadiums, and then of course, what are you doing to address your attitude towards gay people, lesbians, and I think that type of thing, a real positive, direct approach to them to answer these questions would be better than what we've got at the moment, which is just everybody going, well, we know it's the World Cup, we know it's in Qatar, let's just hammer them.
Yeah, I think everything you've said's right, and I think everything that's been said is right, and it'll keep raising its ugly head right until the end, which is a shame because we should be concentrating on the football. But you're right, FIFA should have done something financially to all the people who have lost their life. That wouldn't have been a hard shift, to do.
Not with the money they've got in their account,
that's what I'm
by
saying,
the way.
with the money they've got, that could easily have been compensated. As far as the other stuff, I mean, the country have been like that for so many years now. It's up to them to do something about that. But it will keep raising its ugly head while we're at this tournament.
Yeah, Stephen actually, who's just posted, Qatar shouldn't have got the World Cup in the first place. I don't think too many of us would disagree with you on that. What influenced it? Certainly the history, if you look at Jack Warner and you look at Sepp Blatter and you look at many others within the FIFA establishment, I think, it certainly didn't fill you with confidence in the process of eventually how Qatar got the World Cup. But they have it. They don't have a good record with human, rights issues, Tam, but they've got it, and we've got to get on with it. And then I think there should be more pressure after this tournament.
I think there will be.
Well.
I think there will be. I think there will be a lot of pressure. I listened to it yesterday. Gary Lineker and the pundits on BBC spoke about it at length before the game, and I think that they'll raise attention to it. And I think we want to concentrate on the football, but you can't get away from the fact that people have lost their lives. Building the stadium, building infrastructure there, and as Ruffy says, they've got to be compensated. FIFA are one of the richest companies, organisations in the world. And for them not to compensate people who have lost their lives, building stadiums that they're profiting from, I think is really, really poor.
Yeah, listen, you could go on and on about it. I wonder if the BBC should have actually showed the opening ceremony. I thought that was a bit choice to say the least. I mean, listen, we all have that situation where we have to offer our opinion. I do think one thing, Alison, and I'm talking from a journalistic point of view, I think it's a bit rich sometimes for us all to get on our moral high horse when we consider, you know, the reputations of our own countries at times. Sometimes we have to, you know, maybe look a little bit more introspective of what's happening in our own countries at times, but we're dealing with the here and now of the World Cup. And I think it's perfectly legitimate to condemn some of the behaviour, the way they've got the World Cup, the way they treat people. So I think everybody's well entitled to offer their opinion on it. But as far as the actual ceremony is concerned, I thought they should have shown it yesterday, because it's the opening ceremony. Whether you don't like certain aspects of them, I still think they should have followed the protocol of previous World Cups.
I think it was setting a tone. I think maybe it felt like a natural opening to give their own take on events. I think it's understandable. I think what you would say, judging from the opening few days of the tournament, is that the news stories that surround it aren't going to dissipate even when the football's going on, because I think every day over the weekend and even today has been dominated by a news story.
Even the ticketing seems to be a shambles, getting the fans into the grounds.
These things won't go away. I think these are topics that will remain at the forefront of discussion all the way through the tournament, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the one thing that I found today, even dealing with something just slightly off when the game kicked off, I mean, the Iranian players didn't sing the national anthem because they were showing solidarity with, you know, the treatment of women back in their own country. Suddenly, the whole football has, you know, been politicised, and sometimes, and I'm hypercritical of it domestically, when people take, you know, use football as a platform to put across political statements, and you know, and it gets them into trouble, especially in European competition. But I thought the Iranian players were really, really brave to do that today. It's not a country where you want to make a stand against the government.
There isn't, and obviously the Middle East just now, in those types of places, there's a lot going on. So they showed solidarity, but you just preferred them to show more solidarity football-wise and actually get a result.
Yeah.
Well, because I don't know whether they weren't singing, but I don't think they were playing either, because they get absolutely hammered.
Yeah, but the boy,
I think it'd be interesting, and I know the big clubs have all come out and said no, they're not going to wear the armbands. That'd be interesting if one country takes a hit.
They were saying
they've been told they're going to get a yellow card, Ruffy.
A yellow card to the smaller nations isn't important.
Is he thinking he's better now?
With all due respect to you, Ruffy, a yellow card is important to someone who might pick up 2 yellow cards and miss the next game. So I think a lot of people are thinking to themselves, Harry Kane, yellow card in a game, boom, out.
I'm not talking about the big players. I'm talking about some of the smaller nations who really feel passionate about it and will take a yellow card because it's not going to hit them.
I'd love you to highlight them, because there are 7 or 8. I was going to say to you, because there are 7 or 8 nations that are at the World Cup that also have equally poor you know, human rights issues in their country, and also have a poor record on homosexual, you know, gays and lesbians. So I think, you know, they've got to have a long hard look at themselves as well. You know, Qatar's one problem, but there are other countries with poor human rights issues as well to deal with. So I don't know who's going to step forward and take a card, Ruffy. But listen, it's turning into the party political broadcast, this whole thing. And my apologies, but that's the nature of what football has become at the moment, especially when you're dealing with this issue of Qatar and how the country goes about their business, how they deal with people, and of course in the original point that I think everybody was really angry is the people who've lost their life. One life, I think Henry Winter said, one life is too many, never mind getting an accurate figure on how many people have lost their lives putting the stadiums together from the migrant workers. That said, I'm looking at it, Senegal against Netherlands underway, USA Wales tonight, and we'll reflect on the 3 games on tomorrow's programme as well. We've got lots to talk about to try and cram in here before we get to the end of the programme. The Championship over the weekend, Ruffy, I have to say, if you look at the results here, it's good for you to read them, Ruffy, because quite simply, the Jags got a 3-0 win over Arbroath. The manager was under a bit of pressure. Has that pressure eased with that win now? Is it just a case of, okay, it's Thistle getting back to the old ways?
Yeah, well, we got 3 or 6 players back at the weekend, which made a big difference. We're still -2, we're big ones, Ross Docherty and Kevin Holt. Sooner they get back, the better as well. But no, some of the teams have drawn away a wee bit, but we've got, I think we've next 4 games, we've got 3 games at home and 1 away. So I think all the teams will start playing each other, and I think it will level itself out. But some of the teams are scraping out results, Dundee in particular, you know, playing the bottom of the league, you know, and scraping out a 1-0. It just shows you there's no giving to the results in that championship, top or bottom.
Yeah, it's looking healthier for the Jags. They're just tucked in behind Queen's Park, who had an emphatic 5-2 win over Raith Rovers, Tom.
Yeah, they did. Great result. You know, the Raith Rovers were up there as well. It's a very, very tight league. You know, you've got it there in front of you. I think, 2 points separating the top 4, and it's great for Ayr United. I played down at Ayr United, and I think it would be fantastic to see them back in the Premier League. It's been a long time since they were in the Premier League, and the stadium's probably never changed. But they're putting a bit of money in this season, and I know Lee Bullen really well. So, you know, obviously if I went party, it went for Ruffy, but if not, I think Ayr United.
Yeah.
Good shout.
Well, the Jags got the win that they were craving, and Ian McCall wasn't getting carried away with it.
Where it's only one game though, you know. So, but in this league, you know, if you win 4 or 5 in a row, you'll end up sitting top or top. So, and we've done that before in the season. We won 4 and drew 1, I think, or 1-5, I can't remember. So, yeah, I think it was a very good game of football. But I think it showed that we had 1 or 2 players back.
Yeah, once they get a couple of players back, nice to see Ian McCall there being interviewed in one of the homes under the Hammer houses. We've had a few. I know that press room's mental, isn't it? You're just waiting to walk into a kitchen in the back, then the bedroom is upstairs. But there he is. He's happy enough with it. Although Dick Campbell not too happy. It isn't going according to plan for him this season, because when you look at the overall table in that division, Arbroath are in 9th and they're well off Cove Rangers by some 5 points. But as ever, the Arbroath manager is still enthusiastic about his side's chances of climbing the table.
You know, I'm 1,500 games now, or whatever it is, and 33 years a manager. And if you want to take that enthusiasm away from me, I'm just sitting in the house. I'm not one of the boys that just sit there and I like to let the linesmen know that I care.
Yeah, Dick's not happy with some of the decisions in the game.
Yeah, as Dick will know, the boardroom seats are right behind the dugouts.
Yeah.
And there was an instance when Dick wasn't too happy, and I could hear everything he was saying, and he went up to the linesman and said, "Excuse me, son, I'm not going to swear at you, but could you tell me how we never got a foul there?" And the linesman said to him, "Excuse me, Mr. Campbell, but I don't make the decisions." And he just said, "Well, I won't take it."
Okay, allegedly. But listen, Dick's great. He's great copy, and his enthusiasm for the game has not diminished. It's good to know that he's managed 1,500 games. He counts them, Tam, doesn't he?
Oh, and he knows how many trophies he's won.
Yeah, absolutely. He's all over it. Brilliant. Anyway, it's going to be an interesting championship to see who can get into the Premiership next season. Celtic, no worries about the league at the moment, because they were over in Australia. It was 0-0 against Everton, and then they lost in a penalty shootout. But I think overall, there was a little niggle. Matt O'Reilly was a wee bit miffed with one of the Everton players with a tackle he thought could have been a leg breaker. But other than that, I think the general feeling among the players was it was a huge PR success. Maybe not the success they were looking for on the field, but nevertheless, I think it served its purpose. They were out there to try and spread the word, get the brand out there, get more and more people into them, and they've succeeded in that one, Alison.
Yeah, I think they're ready to take the check. I think, let's be honest, I think that's the whole purpose of going is for the payment that it involved for really, doing very little. I think you're there, you go and play the games. I think Ange Postecoglou was always assured a fairly warm welcome in terms of going going back to Australia, I think Celtic will feel in a PR sense that they've done what they set out to do. I think it'll encourage them to do similar ventures. I know we spoke there about maybe Japan. I think it would encourage you to go and take on more commercial enterprises that you think strengthen your hand financially. In terms of the football, I'm not sure you learn much more than you've not seen already this campaign. I think there's a real, I wouldn't say concern, but I think what you would say is there's an argument to say that Celtic could do with an out-and-out striker.
Yeah.
When you look at the chances that they're creating, and those 2 games were really their season in microcosm, or their Champions League season in microcosm, where you're creating opportunities in games but you're really not putting them away, and I think that would be a consideration going into January.
Yeah, I think that is, the one thing that reared its ugly head time and time again in the Champions League group stages, Tam. You might be looking good domestically, but they can't score goals.
Yeah, I think that obviously the higher level you step up, you've got to be clinical. I think when you're Celtic Rangers here and domestically, you're getting tons of chances. You're creating loads of chances because you're dominating the ball. You're playing in the opposition's half for 90 minutes. So you're going to create opportunities, and you can afford to miss a couple because you'll score one anyway. But when you step up the levels, you don't get as many chances. And I think Celtic have shown in the Champions League that they're capable of getting, creating chances against good opposition, but you've got to be clinical. You need strikers in there that are going to take 60-70% of the chances you get, because you're not going to get 5 and 6 in the Champions League.
Yeah, I wonder, it'd be interesting to see who he sacrifices, Ruffy. Everybody expects Juranovic to head out the door, but I wonder if he'll be even more cutthroat and say, well, listen, some of you just haven't got the goals that I thought you were going to get. I'm going to bring this guy in, and you're going to be sold.
I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. I don't even think the Celtic supporters would be surprised if it was one of the top names or one of the ones that pertain particularly well to get away for the striker. But I think a lot of people will be looking at Hatate. I think he's been superb. I think he could go to another level. So they might have to sacrifice somebody like him. But certainly, I don't think they'll be too bothered, because the players that he's brought in have been absolutely fantastic. And if they trust him to carry on like that, I'm sure the next 3 or 4 will just be the same.
I don't often like to comment on other pundits sometimes when they make a statement, but Gregor's posted one here that I thought I might as well get everybody just for a wee noise up before we go. What about your ex-teammate Ruffy? Gregor says, Peter, what about Graham Souness's comments over the weekend about Celtic's VAR advantage? If he's a mate of yours, is it not okay for you to criticise him? Well, he's not a mate of mine, Ruff. He's a mate of yours. He's your ex-teammate, and I know he's come out with a couple of things over the last couple of weeks. Celtic and Rangers sharing this all-new purpose stadium, which I thought was interesting. And then, of course,
He actually told me he thought there should be a sports bar in the town for the supporters before games. So he's at the wind-up.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was, honestly, it's a bit rich, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you could make an argument that VAR has probably hindered Celtic. I think when you look at, since its implementation that first weekend at Tynecastle, I think you could probably come up with a contentious decision that's gone against Celtic for every game. So I think they've been better because they've been the better team overall in the league. I think they are head and shoulders above anyone else this term, and I think that's been reflected in the table.
Yeah, absolutely. There you are, Gregor. We've given you our insight into it. We love, listen, I love the fact that we all, at least you're getting an opinion. The good thing about it here, Tam, on the programme, we're still through all the way through the World Cup. It's uncensored, it's unbiased, it's unmatched. We're here 5 days a week giving you big licks. There's not many people on their own YouTube channels constantly offering opinion. Wee bit of banter here and there, and we like our fellow pundits to offer a few things, despite some of them seeming more radical than others.
No, we don't sit in the fence in this show. I think you give your opinion. If you get slaughtered on the feed or you get slaughtered online on Twitter or whatever, then you take it. But you've always got to give an honest opinion, and that's why we're here, that's why we get paid. If we were just sitting here and being vanilla and just sitting in the fence all the time like certain pundits, then you'd be annoyed if you had to pay them, Peter, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. You would write those names down of the people you're talking about, Tom, that'd be great.
Right now. With his Debenhams jumper on.
Just give us your thoughts of the weekend. I know we like, Ruffy likes, and I like as well. I know Alison has mentioned to me she likes our footballers to be hard and not pulling out of games just for wee niggles here and there. you didn't make it to the big match at Easter Road, where Lee Griffiths apparently scored a raker from the halfway line.
He did. He scored a couple. No, I didn't make it. Unfortunately, I've torn my calf playing five-a-sides.
Yeah.
Last week, trying to get myself fit for it. But
Would
suppose
you have played if Legod had turned up?
I maybe would have strapped it up. But I think there was just under 5,000 fans there, so I think it was a great turnout for Hanlon Stevenson are a brilliant charity. You know, helping a lot of underprivileged kids in Edinburgh, and it was all for a great cause. Some players that were there were in great shape. Some others weren't in as great shape, but it was all for charity.
Yeah. What category would you put yourself in?
Which players weren't in great shape, Tom?
I don't know.
I bet you don't say Yogi.
Big Yogi looks better now than he was when he was playing, but I wouldn't have dropped into the category of fit.
Well, to be fair, I did have a look at a few of the pictures. You would have done all right in that game.
Would have,
but Griffiths, it just fills me full of sadness, Alison. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm out of left field on this, but I think somebody's going to take a chance on him in January. That's when people start to panic.
He'll definitely be hoping that's the case. I think he's still young. He's, in terms of what he can offer, I think he's a natural goal scorer. He's an instinctive goal scorer. I think it's desperately sad that he's not got a club just now.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. I'm not a fan of the way he's conducted himself over the last couple of years. I thought his last 2.5 years at Celtic were a complete waste of time. I think he's squandered what talent he has, but there's still time to have a swan song somewhere else in the twilight of his career. And I think when clubs start to panic, they might just look at Lee Griffiths and think, we're going to take a chance on a roller coaster that he might get a few goals, Tam, to save them.
Possibly, but he's got to keep himself in shape now. He's got to keep himself, fit, ready to go. I've been in that position myself. When you're out of contract and it's very difficult to get out every day and train yourself. I know he was in training with Livingston, which is great for him. It was great for David Martindale to get him in, but he's got to keep himself in shape, because if he's fit, there's no question for me his abilities, up there with the best strikers in Scottish football. But he's got to keep himself fit. He's got to be ready. And just in case, you're right, a Motherwell or St Mirren, somebody might get a couple of injuries and they might pick up the phone. But he's got to be ready to go right into the team and ready to play. And if he is, then I think he's still got an opportunity to redeem, the last couple of seasons, because his abilities, for me, he's never been in question. He's a fantastic goal scorer.
Yeah. We've got the competition going with Greaves and Copa going right throughout the World Cup. All you have to do is tell us who you think is going to win it, who you think is going to be the top goal scorer and the player of the tournament. Drop it into the feed, and that means you're in the draw. If you actually hit the subscribe button, that's another chance for you to win on that. And over and above that, we've got a brilliant competition which is free to enter, and I think it's something that you're going to enjoy. It's worldcupfandex.com. It's well worth getting involved. Here's how you do it.
Come and join PLZ Soccer on Fandex for our FIFA World Cup 2022 stock exchange game. It's absolutely free to play, and you have the chance to win cash prizes. You can buy shares in your favourite team and watch their stock price increase or decrease based on their real-life World Cup performances against the expected points tally set by Fandex. You can buy and sell as many teams as you like, as often as you like, with winners being announced after every round. The PLZ Soccer family are waiting for you on Fandex. Head to plzsoccer.com and click on Fandex World Cup 2022.
Well done to Kerry. We will obviously be posting the link to get you straight there. Good luck with that. It's free to play. It's also free to watch this programme, Ruffy, which is great, because every day we're on Monday to Friday. We always throw in a wee quiz answer. Can you give us the answer to the quiz, which was how many times?
I would maybe have a guess at 4.
You think that Iran have competed in the World Cup 4 times?
Yeah. It's 4 as well.
3
You're going
for
4?
me. I'll go 3.
3, okay. The answer is 6.
Whoa.
6 times.
I knew they were a good side.
Absolutely. They've been at 6 World Cups, and I include this one in the overall 6. So congratulations if you managed to give us the correct answer on that. Lots of football to talk about throughout the week as well. We've got some special one-to-ones coming up that I think you're going to enjoy. I've invited some players, former managers in to have a wee chat about football. And over and above, obviously, here 4 o'clock till 5. We'll try and do as many live shows as we can throughout the World Cup. We're going to throw in a few specials which I think you might enjoy. If you love your football, then all you have to do is hit the subscribe button, and we'll keep you right up to date with what's happening right across Monday to Friday. And of course, if you download the app, you get all the breaking football stories on the PLZ Soccer app. Thanks to Tam, thanks to Alison, thanks to Ruffy, and from myself, Peter Martin, thanks to you for watching.